Welcome to another day with Jesus, a daily devotional podcast to help you walk with Jesus, live for Jesus, and represent Jesus. Now let us open our heart to receive as Pastor Preji shares from the heart of God.
Good morning and greetings to you, my dear friend. Wherever you are, let me remind you this morning, and this is coming from the heart of God. You are unique, you are precious, you are chosen by God, you are called for a higher purpose. There is nothing in your life which is by accident or by coincidence. You are not a child of God because you chose to be. You are a born-again Christian because God chose you. He desired to lavish His love upon you. He opened your eyes to be able to see Him and to receive Him and to be able to live for Him. Every breath that you take now, every inch that you move towards Him, you do so with the help and the strength that He gives you. When we remember this and when we live our lives in response to what God is doing in our lives, to what God is speaking in our lives, we will be victorious. You and I, we do not have to be victims of our circumstances. We do not have to be victims of what the news channels tell us. We don't have to be victims of what the environment, what the government tell us in a season like this. And I understand that they are doing their best to try and keep their citizens safe. They are doing their best to try and cater to the needy and the hurting people all over the nations, and especially even in the nation of India. In this season of the second wave of this pandemic, I truly believe that we have to hear God and godly people like never before in this season. See, the more we hear people that don't talk on behalf of God, that don't talk godly perspective, the more we will sink in the muck along with them. The Bible says in the book of Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 7, it says, you need to stay away from fools, for you won't find knowledge on their lips. You will find information, you will find statistics, you will even find worldly understanding and worldly wisdom and worldly perspectives. But this is what you wouldn't find. You wouldn't find divine knowledge. You wouldn't find a perspective of heaven in their lips. Now, according to the Bible, who are the ones that are fools? The Bible says, the fool says in his heart that there is no God. So, if you have friendships with people that don't believe in the perspective about God that you believe in, what you're doing is you are engaging in relationships, you are engaging in conversations that have the potential to bring that foolishness into your life, where you won't find, the Bible says, you will not find knowledge on their lips. Now, that may not be necessarily true about a lot of friendships and relationships that we may see and experience, because when we talk to them, when we talk to a person who doesn't have Jesus in their hearts, you would still find them talking sense, logical, rational sense. And sometimes we can get swept away by what they are speaking. Now, I'm not saying that you should hate these people. I'm not saying that you should ignore them or isolate them or keep them out of your life completely. The Bible says you need to stay away from fools because you will not find knowledge on their lips. Because if you are going to them so that you can receive knowledge from them, then you need to stay away from them. If you're going to them so you can receive help from them, then you need to stay away from them. If you're going to them because you need direction from them, then you need to stay away from them. Now, I understand a logical question that you may ask me is, hey, when we are sick, we do go to a doctor who may or may not be a believer. When we need a house to be built, we do go to an architect who may or may not be a believer. How do we do this? See, I'll explain this to you. There's a big difference between somebody who gives you an information about where to make your house and what kind of rooms to make, or somebody who gives you the correct medicines for your correct sicknesses. There's a big difference between a person like that and a person who is going to give you divine information or divine knowledge. Now, I'm not saying it's bad for you to go to a doctor. I'm not saying it's bad for you to go to a person that is not a believer. I'm saying no, that person cannot be the ultimate source of knowledge in your life. You need to first and foremost go to God. You need to hear what God is saying and what God is speaking. Let me take the example of Nehemiah. The Bible says when Nehemiah wanted to build or rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, he first went to God. He first sat in the presence of God and he cried out and he received instructions and help and perspective and understanding from his God, where he had communion with God. And finally, he went to the king, and the king helped him, supported him to do what God had already told him to do. So he didn't receive knowledge from the king. He didn't receive help and support from the king. He received his knowledge, his help, his support from God, and the king only was a vessel that God would use to do what God had already asked Nehemiah to do. Now that is how we need to live our lives. We cannot isolate ourselves from the people of the world, but what we could do is first and foremost go to God. Make sure that God is the most prominent voice in every aspect of our lives. And then it will become very easy for us to understand what our employer is telling us to do. It will become very easy for you to submit to your unbelieving husband. It will become very easy for you to have a perspective about what the government is expecting you to do. Your ultimate source of knowledge comes from a wise person, somebody that depends on God, somebody that receives from God. That is where life abounds. You have to remain rooted in a place where you can be nourished and you can be cherished and you can be celebrated, you can be fed. And after that, you go wherever He sends you, and make sure to never receive a help or a support from a person towards a direction where God is not sending you already. And that will help you, my dear friend. I don't know who this is for, but I believe this is prophetic about where you are today. And may the Lord cause every voices of the enemy to be disconnected from your ears, and that your ears will first and foremost recognize and respond to God's voice, and then and only then to any other voice. God bless you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We will catch up again tomorrow morning.
We hope you are encouraged by today's podcast. To know more about Pastor Preji or other resources you can avail, or to receive help in any specific area, connect with us at pastorpreji.com. We wish you a Christ-filled day ahead.